Have any of you ever thought, I wonder who was the greatest team of all time? What team achieved something that we will probably never see again? Some say the 1972 Miami Dolphins, who finished an undefeated season in football, or the 2001 Seattle Mariners, who won 109 games in a 162-game baseball season. But I believe it is the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls. Some of you may have heard of the great seasons the Bulls had during the 90s. And even if you haven't, I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest athlete of all time. Maybe some of you have played basketball and pretended you were Michael Jordan making a game-winning shot. I, myself, have always been interested in basketball, and my favorite team has been the Chicago Bulls. Since, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Milwaukee Bucks haven't given me really much to root for. And I pride myself on knowing a lot of information about my team. My belief is that the Chicago Bulls during the 1995 and 96 NBA season were the greatest sports team ever. My main points are their record. They had the best offense and defense in the entire NBA. And they had the best scorer, rebounder, and defender and coach of all time. And my first point is their record. No other team has ever won 70 games in an NBA season. And the Bulls won an unprecedented 72 games. This in itself is an unbelievable feat just because of how tough and grueling an NBA season is. Especially during that time when rules were they weren't as fouls weren't called as often during this time. I'll say the game was a lot more physical, and also because of home court advantage that most teams had during this time, where they would usually play better on their home court or they would get better calls. And the Bulls only laid an egg once the entire year when it was on the road against the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden, which is the quintessential home court advantage, being in New York and in that venue. The Bulls won 41 of their first 44 games during that season, and in January went an amazing 14-0. My second point, they pulled off something that had never been done before. They were rated the number one offense and defense in the NBA. Teams usually pride themselves on being really good at defense or being really good at offense, but the Bulls decided to bring it both on each side of the ball every night. And being able to do this is very, very impressive. My third point is that they had the best scorer, defender, and rebounder and coach of all time. Michael Jordan is said to be the greatest player in NBA history, and there is a lot of evidence to back that up. During this year, he scored 30 points per game, and even though Wilt Chamberlain during the 60s scored 50 points a game, during this time where a guard who couldn't just be taller than everyone could score at that rate is unbelievable. And even though Kevin Durant today is scoring 32 points per game, the physicality during that time was way higher compared to now. And when perimeter defense comes to mind, a lot of people think of Scottie Pippen. He was put on an opposing team's best guard every night and did amazing in that regard, on that side of the ball. He averaged around 2 steals per game. MJ had more than 2, but it was mostly Pippen's doing and MJ coming over to help. They also had, in my mind, the best rebounder of all time in Dennis Rodman. He is also one of the weirdest people I've heard of. He actually wore a wedding dress to his wedding. And I guess you do have to be really weird to be a good rebounder and get your nose dirty, as he did. He averaged a crazy 15 rebounds per game, 8 of them being offensive. And rebounding is essential for winning basketball games, and I don't think their record would have been possible without him. They also had the Zen Master, Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is known as a very calm and collective coach, which is very different from coaches that are usually very good. He won 11 NBA championships, 6 with the Bulls and 5 with the Lakers, and he is the winningest coach in NBA history. My main points were the Bulls' record. They had the best offense and defense. They had the best scorer, defender, rebounder, and coach of all time. And in conclusion, I believe we will never see a team as gritty and lovable as the Bulls of the 90s. And in their quintessential and amazing year in 96, there is no doubt in my mind that this is the greatest team of all time.